Hello and welcome to Pulse Social Sports Group weekly podcast. My name is Aniqa. I'm a trainee sports journalist, and today I have with me Hafsa Mekki, who is a volunteer outreach ambassador for Parkrun. Hi Hafsa.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries.
It's great to have you. Can you tell me a little about Parkrun?
Yeah, so Parkrun is a community event which is actually run around the world. It's a free weekly timed 5-kilometre run, which is on Saturdays, and that's for adults and children actually. But they do have one which is exclusively for children on Sunday mornings, which is a 2-kilometre run. It's completely run by volunteers, each of the events, and people in the local community. And it's just a way of sort of bringing people together and giving them a chance to get involved and improve their fitness, but all for free.
That sounds great. What are the ages for the child group? What age can they start from, and what age does it go up to?
So when you join Parkrun, you register online and you get a little barcode. So that's how the timing works. Because once you finish, you get a token at the end, and they'll scan it and give you your time. So to be able to register, you need to be 4 years old. So the junior Parkrun on Sundays is for kids aged between 4 and 14.
Okay. That seems actually really good that it's such a young age as well, because the earlier you get the kids started, the more they develop these habits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and seeing the junior event, it's great because you see a child aged 4 and a child aged 14 are obviously vastly different, and you see the difference, but they then sort of have like role models that they look up to, which is really sweet.
Of course, and I imagine even that young, they're quite excited wanting to win, so they're just trying their best, and it must look like, I'm just imagining the visual, and that must seem adorable. That's all I'm thinking.
yeah. I mean, they do obviously at that age, they run with their parents, and it's nice to see, because we always push the fact that Parkrun isn't a race. It's not about being the best or the fastest or anything like that. It's it's about being your best self and improving your own time, or even just having fun, even if you're not bothered about the time. And that's what you kind of see with kids that age, is that they, along the way, they're not like worried about finishing first. They're picking up sticks, they're chasing squirrels, they're finding feathers on the grass and stuff.
It's just a fun day out for them.
Yeah, it's a bit refreshing, and it kind of makes you rethink when you're doing it yourself, like, oh, maybe I should just enjoy the park rather than keep thinking about, running faster or something.
No, throughout the year, I keep waiting. Every year, I'm like, when summer's here, I'm going to go do this. But actually, these things, you can go and enjoy the park in all weather. You don't need to wait for that nice, perfect day. And I feel like Parkrun really does help people go out and spend more time at their local parks.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially when they started introducing like the Christmas Day and New Year's Day Parkrun, so even when it didn't fall on a Saturday, they'd have an extra one for New Year's Day or an extra one for Christmas Day. And seeing the amount of people who'd still come out on a day where they probably have a billion and other one things to do and getting ready to go visit family or something like that, still come out in the morning when it's usually quite cold or wet. Yeah. Just to sort of join in this community event, which is it's really nice to see.
And it's actually really great to hear, because normally around Christmas time and New Year's, you eat a lot of food. Obviously, it's holiday food as well. You're staying at home. Junk food's always handy if you're peckish, and then still have the motivation, because, this is something you enjoy, to be able to go out and just, even if you're not running, even if you're walking that whole route, just to see that kind of turnout must be amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's really great. And I think it's kind of what's really nice about it is it shows the actual community feel that Parkrun has brought, because I think part of it is not people even thinking, oh, I need to exercise today because it's Christmas Day. It's part of them thinking is, oh, I want to see my Parkrun family on Christmas Day. Yeah. That's what's really nice, because every time we go to the Christmas event, we see so many people that we see all the time, which is strange, but you just, it's a day that everyone's happy, everyone's celebrating, and you want to see them on that day too. So,
as I was looking into it, I was like, this is amazing, and how much it's grown. You're a volunteer yourself, and can you tell me a little bit about your journey and how you became involved with the organization?
Yeah, so I first went to a Parkrun gosh, I don't even know how many years ago, it could have been like 4 or 5 years ago. And I just briefly read about it in basically I was on a mission to become fitter, and I'm not really one for the gym, and I bought Women's Health magazine, which actually didn't even relate to me one bit, but in one article somebody had mentioned Parkrun, and I decided to Google it, and I was like, I could try this. But like you said, motivation's quite hard, and I decided to invite people with me to say, why don't we try this together? Because I knew that if other people were relying on me to be there, that I couldn't back down.
I have to get up for their sake.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, they're meeting me there, so I've got to go. I was like, okay, I'll force myself into this. And I went, and it was in January. It was snowing. The park was very snowy. And it was freezing. I was a bit nervous, and I got there. I did it. I realised 5 kilometres was a lot longer than I thought, and yeah, I loved it. And what's quite funny is I then continued going to Parkrun just as a runner, not as a volunteer, for over a year. And a little secret is that I hated running for a year and a half. I absolutely hated running.
What made you keep going back?
Yeah, so it was Parkrun that brought me back. It was that community. Like when you do finish, you think, oh, actually that was great, and the volunteers are great, and it was nice that when you finish and you stay behind, or when you're still finishing, and the people who've already finished, they stay behind to cheer you at the finish line or cheer you along the way, and you see different people and you see their progress as well as your own, and that is what kept me going. Because if you ask a lot of people, running's actually quite hard to get into mentally, and to enjoy. It's not something that you just go out and do and then you instantly love sometimes. But yeah, so I was, after a while, I thought, oh, maybe I should volunteer and give back. And I used to just be a marshal, and then and they are quite easy volunteering roles, but when you're on the other side, you feel like some of the roles, such as the timekeeper, holds a lot of responsibility. You worry about getting someone's time wrong. And eventually I was a regular volunteer at events, until somebody approached me about becoming an event director for a junior parkrun at our local park. And it was an opportunity I definitely wanted to take on. And from that, I was then invited to become an outreach ambassador, which again, for me, meant a lot, because it was about engaging more of my local community. Because I did find that when I had gone to Parkrun, it didn't feel as representative as the actual community that the Parkrun was in. And it's about getting people more involved in it. And I just thought, why not? It was a place that I'd recently bought a house in, so I thought, I'd want to invest my time into making it a nicer place to be, and making sure that everybody has these sort of equal opportunities.
No, it's great. And what I love about this as well is because you're someone who, like you said, was not a runner, and it was actually the community and the environment that motivated you to keep going and going. So I myself am not a runner. I tried it once and I gave up about, I did it for a month or so, and then it just fizzled out. But I remember feeling great at the end of it. And then even, I think that was just the endorphins, they're just kicking in. I'm just feeling great. But I'm imagining on the scale of Parkrun, where you have that community support, then that must be so, amplified so much. And I imagine if you have someone you're running with, even, you can make friends at organizations such as these. And a lot of the time for women, and I feel like particularly from BAME background, a lot of your time is spent at home looking after your family, or if you're a working mom, then it's just work and home. You don't really make a lot of time for yourself or do activities that is just for yourself, your self-care. And maybe something like Parkrun could be your independence to go out and just spend a few hours just thinking about yourself, your day, what you want to do. Yeah,
exactly. Definitely. And that's one thing that I found as well when because when we had our event, I eventually ended up volunteering more than I ended up running at Parkrun. So even though we had our junior event on the Sundays, and when I had a baby, I sort of did Parkrun right up to the end, and my husband very kindly offered to sort of cover my maternity leave. Obviously I was a volunteer, so they didn't really, I didn't really, he didn't have to, it would just be covered by the other volunteers. But he knew, he does know how important it is for me. And I think he thought putting himself forward was a way of me still sort of being involved in it. But I mean, I think I only lasted maybe 8 weeks, and then I was back in because I just couldn't wait to get back, and brought my little boy along with me at 8 weeks old to his first parkrun. And because it was a really important part of my life, and I think now in lockdown, it's something that I can see that I am really missing.
Yeah, I think Parkrun then becomes almost like your family, because your kids are, if you're involved to a certain level, your kids are then involved, and like you said, your husband was even involved. So that way, yes, it's your Parkrun family, but your family is coming along with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's been we had really we've met some really great people with it, but with the participants being from the local community, there's even, so like I said, I was there in Parkrun before, so a lot of the kids and their parents, they saw me when I was first pregnant, they saw me go through my pregnancy, saw me come back, and they've met my little boy every time we would bring him every week, and they've seen him grow up, and he's only he's 1.5 now. And there's, for example, there's one of the junior runners, and she lives a couple of streets down, and whenever she walks past the house, she comes to play peekaboo at the window with my little boy, because they know each other, and it's really sweet. So it's like these little
and I imagine for your son as well, it's a great way to meet other kids as well, that he can have friends even before he goes, so maybe develop his social skills earlier and develop his interest in physical activity at a young age.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think when we first started our junior event, so there's a group of run directors, and where the run director is the person who kind of organises the event on the day and coordinates the volunteers. And there's 6 of us, and we'd said that one of our proudest moments, and the reason when we realised that we'd kind of accomplished what we wanted to achieve, is seeing. We were in the park on a day that there wasn't a park run, and there were some of the kids all celebrating one of the juniors' birthdays, but they'd only met each other through Parkrun, like they weren't friends
outside.
So it was so nice. We're like, well, that's kind of what we wanted them to sort of build their own little community and make friends. And
I think the great thing about that is that they're local. So it's so easy for these kids to meet up and hang out with people who are like-minded, especially in the area, and get to know your neighbours, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. What steps has Parkrun taken to be more inclusive, particularly for women from BAME background who struggle to make time for physical activity? Like I said earlier, we discussed that women are, especially BAME, tend to be more home-orientated and don't make time for them. So has Parkrun taken any action to encourage these women to actually do step out?
Yeah, so with Parkrun, I think inclusivity is their sort of main aim, really. So having people on board, such as myself, so that's what they've done, is sort of have recruited volunteer outreach ambassadors from people who are from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of job roles, people who are in those communities, to sort of help promote it, help spread the word, and help engage with, say, sort of like hidden community members. So help, and as you say, I think the women from BAME backgrounds are wildly underrepresented in many walks of life, really. But yes, I think it's sort of getting more people involved who have a similar background and who have that understanding, using people like myself to gain ideas, to get help to how they can.
I think that's very helpful, because someone like yourself, for example, or anyone who's working from a BAME background would understand the needs of that community and how to connect with that community to make them take that step and to try Parkrun at the very least.
Exactly, because they've made the first step in sort of allocating the specific postcodes in these sort of areas, and they did sort of quickly realise that just opening a parkrun in the area isn't enough to just expect people to come and join, that they needed to do more in order to actually get people involved, and also just to understand that it is for everybody. Like when I mentioned it, when I read about Parkrun 5-6 years ago, it was running in a park that I visit all the time. I used to be in all the time, and I'd never seen it, never heard of it. So it was also just that whole getting the word out, but amongst the correct platforms.
Yeah, no, I'm glad Parkrun is, hiring ambassadors such as yourself to get that push forward and make it happen more and more. And that way it is inclusive now, but you are taking steps to keep it going further and further. So,
yeah, I think that's one thing that's really positive, is that they're not becoming complacent, that they do keep continuing with the sort of research and looking into how they can make sure that it is truly open and truly open for everybody.
Yeah, especially I would say, obviously this is something that's global, but in a city like London that is known for being very diverse, you want Parkrun to reflect that diversity to the maximum. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Over the years, Parkrun has had great success and has gone higher and higher in terms of people involved, as well as location and events. It's global, it's happening in thousands and thousands of locations. What has made it endure for so long, and what would you consider to be its proudest achievement?
I think the fact that it has continued for so long is that it's free, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I think, and that's something that they've always pushed us always at the top of their agenda, that it is free, and they've always said that they want it to be free forever, and they never want it to incur a cost on anyone joining. And I think that's one of the main reasons. I
think definitely, especially if it's a disadvantaged communities, they tend to be looking at the free stuff, and that's the one that they only keep coming back to, because that will help them carry on with their cost as it is without affecting the budget negatively, but at the same time taking in the benefits from an organisation such as this.
Exactly, and people don't understand that when you are on this sort of journey to improving your health, having to add any kind of financial strain to that doesn't really help. If you are somebody with really limited disposable income, having to think about, oh well, yes, health is my priority, but do I then give myself the financial strain of adding a gym membership on? And then if a gym membership is, if it's not a rolling contract and you've got to be in a contract for a year and then you don't go, it can add to unnecessary stress. I think people don't quite understand that even something like a gym membership, which is £10 a month or something.
Yeah. The thing is, you are losing money if you're not going, and then on top of it, it creates guilt for yourself for not going to the gym, and then guilt for wasting money as well. Being healthy isn't something you should feel guilty about. This is something that you should do because it's fun, because you enjoy it. No one has succeeded at something because other people told them to do it.
Exactly, and I think also, so even looking into that, because there's a lot of people who come to Parkrun who can afford a gym membership, but just I think for them, knowing that it is something that they can dip in and out of as and when they please, but it is an activity where it is very inclusive, and when it is run by volunteers, it does just have that feel good factor, and it means that it's open to everyone. It means that you're mixing to everyone. Thinking about Parkrun's proudest achievement, I personally think it's not, as well as the number of Parkruns there are and the number of people who've joined and being global, but I remember seeing the figures from the first couple of years when Parkrun had started and the average finish time. And if you look at the average finish time now, I don't remember off the top of my head, but the average finish time has gotten longer, gotten slower. And I think that is one of Parkrun's proudest achievements. They always talk about it as a really positive thing, because they were saying it means we've become more inclusive. It means we've got more people who are coming to walk. It means, we're not just appealing to elite athletes.
That's amazing, because you would think, especially with an organisation that concentrates on running And then for them to actually be proud of, okay, we're at the same level, we're not getting shorter and shorter. That means new people are coming in, people are comfortable running at their own pace, and they don't feel the pressure to be the fastest. Maybe some people just, they're jogging together, they like talking even with each other and catching up on their lives. So, I mean, that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. And honestly, like, I need to look where my nearest parkrun is.
You definitely do.
Yeah. Women do less activity than men weekly, and women from BAME background even less. Like you said, you have been taking steps to keep it going through ambassadors such as yourself. How can you keep this momentum going?
I think, like I said, the one thing that they are focusing on is not being complacent and to continue to improve these numbers. So they've even started different, I think they trialled in one of the Parkruns where they advertised it as a park walk to get more people involved, so people who feel like they are less active. Because if you do see it from afar and you don't know what Parkrun's about, as soon as you see a runner and somebody timing you immediately do think it's an organised race or something that you're incredibly quick for. So they started they trialled this park walk, which was really successful. That they're hoping that they can probably continue, just to encourage people that you don't have to be very active, and you don't have to be. Also, just to remind people, you don't have to finish it. You can just come do as much as you can and leave. You can work your way up to it. The sort of similar.
Imagine, like what you're saying is a parkrun must look intimidating, especially to someone who doesn't see themselves as a runner. But you're labeling it park walk, and people find it easier to be able to walk for long distances than imagine themselves doing a run. Exactly,
and I think that the other aspects that they're sort of trying to put out there, just to communicate what parkrun is actually about, and is they do try and make sure that any of the imagery that they're using when it's being marketed is diverse, is showing a mix of abilities. And one of their rules as well was that they don't really show pictures of the start line or the finish line, because they don't want this image that it is a race. It's meant to just be the journey that you have along the route.
I think that's great marketing, and especially if you're trying to show the group as diverse, because representation is so important for people to see themselves as, someone like them is doing this activity. Oh, I can do that. What challenges has Parkrun faced, and how did you overcome them?
So, I think...
Imagine this varies very much depending on where each park is, because then, different communities could face different challenges.
Yeah, so I know that there was a parkrun down, I don't want to get the place wrong. I feel like it's Bristol, but don't quote me on that. There was a parkrun. I mean, sometimes there are some challenges with local authorities or with council. So when you're using the park, and parkrun does become very popular. So there was a particular park where the council was then asking for parkrun to pay a fee and for using the park, because they would have to either maintain paths, etc. And that sadly ended in the closure of the parkrun, because in order for them to be able to afford paying that fee to the council would mean that they would have to charge their members, and again, that is something that Parkrun feels very strongly about, to make sure that it is free, because it does need to be for everyone. And as soon as you add a cost to it,
I think it goes against the principle of what Parkrun stands for, really.
Yeah, and I think in terms of overcoming it, I think it was then just sort of being aware that when it does go out there, when we do start new events, that making councils, making local authorities aware of the actual benefits that it is bringing. I mean, every park and every council pushes people to use the parks.
I was just going to say that the council should be happy that the park is there for the people to use, and they should actually be glad that it's being used so much. I mean, councils do have budget That just means you need to maybe allocate a bigger budget towards the maintenance of your park, but they are there for the people. They're not there, and you're not making profit. You are doing this for the soul, for their local communities.
Exactly. And again, just as soon as people do see that benefit of it's people who are using the park, you then see them join other events afterwards. It's also the volunteers that we have, and the sort of ripple effect, the improvement on their health of the people who are attending Parkrun. And yeah, I think once they do see that bigger picture, we're very lucky here that our council are very supportive and have seen the great benefits that Parkrun has brought to the park. But I know that has been one of the challenges that people have faced.
This is the first time, I imagine, that happened. You guys had to, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And again, that was your strategy. Let's let the council know. Let's be prepared more in advance to avoid this kind of situation. This is great for the local communities, and if your communities are healthy, they're living a well life, they're mentally feeling better. This is all in the benefit of the council as well. How has COVID-19 affected Parkrun? Of course, I understand that, it had to be shut down completely following government guidelines. Have you taken any steps to ease back into some form of running since lockdown has eased slightly? And, has something been done particularly for vulnerable communities who might rely on Parkrun for their, any only physical activity, or to help them with their mental health?
So yeah, like you said, COVID-19 has affected Parkrun in the fact that they're not running at the moment. They are looking into at the moment sort of how we can, what a Parkrun could look like post-lockdown, and nothing has been set in stone, but they have looked at options of what we could be doing, and it would require more volunteers, or maybe a bit more volunteer time, but again, it's not set in stone. So I think they just did that to put the feelers out, which has been great. I know a lot of my Parkrun team and a lot of the volunteers I know are just happy to see that there's an inkling of Parkrun coming back, hopefully soon, but also relieved to know that they are properly taking steps to make sure that they are taking the pandemic into account. But while Parkrun hasn't been running, they've been doing online quizzes every week, online Parkrun quizzes, and I think that's what's really nice. That's a really good representation of what Parkrun is about. That they haven't been doing online races or anything like that. A quiz is something that everybody can do and everybody can take part in.
And I guess it retains that feeling of community then.
Exactly, and you don't have to be like an avid parkrunner to join the quiz. It's a bit like some of them are sort of like potluck questions, or pulling on some general knowledge. But also we've got a lot of volunteers who never run. So if it was just something that they did online, which was specifically for the physical activity of running, it would have excluded all the volunteers as well. And we've seen our core team used to do like a video call every Saturday morning and Saturday mornings we could make it and do the quiz together, and it was a really nice way of sort of keeping people's Parkrun communities together, because that was kind of the idea, that people do the quiz in groups virtually. And they've also started it's called Not a Parkrun, and you can do the distance in your own time and record it. So it's still recorded, just like it would be if you were actually doing the Parkrun, but sort of separate results.
So this all sounds great, because Parkrun, it seems like, isn't rushing into it. You want to make sure that when things do get back to some form of regular running, that everyone is as safe as possible, and you have all the information before you get there. But in the meantime, to keep the momentum going, there's all these online activities happening. That's great. I mean, I'm loving this organization more and more. This is great, and it was so lovely to chat with you and to learn more about Parkrun. I loved it. I'm quite excited about it, and I'm hoping to join it in the future. So I wasn't even trying to be convinced, but you just convinced me by telling me about it.
Well, you're very welcome. We look forward to having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today.